Welcome to the Mark Outwood Show, Adventures in the Cosmic Suit, on location from my mum's house, hence the washing. So, before I start, remember to sign up to the email list below to avoid censorship. Who knows how long YouTube's going to last. But in the meantime, one of the greatest pleasures of doing this show has been finding new people to talk to who are bringing something amazing to the table. One of those that I found recently calls himself Harry the Soul Coach, which is a bit of a funny surname. It's really Rathbone Thomas, right?
Yes. This is easier to say.
Now, Harry, apart from being a traitor to the English with your USA top, and I know why he's wearing it, so it's okay. I don't know why I didn't find you before recently. I just found somebody sent me a link to one of your videos, and then I spent a few hours watching your channel, and I was just like, this guy's fantastic. I've got to talk to him.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I've literally had no luck getting on place. I've been censored on everything, and it's only been now where the message is really starting to get out there. So it's almost now's my time to start sharing the information that I've been putting out for a long time now. So it's exciting times.
Well, it's great because I love seeing anybody get up and start talking truth or their version of truth and just going for it and you do that really, really well with lots of good storytelling abilities, with humor, with good research behind it and everything else. Just talk about, tell me your story. How did you get to this point?
Okay, so originally from the health and fitness industry, I had my own gyms within London. I set up my first gym in 2009. And I went on a journey of helping a lot of other people, and quite quickly understood that it wasn't just about fitness and nutrition. It started looking at every other aspect of their life. And I didn't like to be called a personal trainer because I was associated with everyone else that called herself a trainer. It wasn't what I did. And it was taking people on a journey. And I think what I realized was I needed to get into their heads and see their world rather than me telling you what to do. So I quite quickly started looking at a lot of other aspects of life. And then as that journey went on, I then started the fitness education company. So we train people to become personal trainers, and a real passion for really helping people succeed. And in 2009, someone introduced me to a documentary called Zeitgeist. It was one of the original conspiracy documentaries.
I remember when it came out. Yeah,
I
remember the soundtrack. We're like, whoa.
and at the time, that was really like, it got you thinking. I remember I said to my mum and dad and my sister, I've got this documentary, and all of them were asleep on the sofa watching it. So no one was interested back then. And then, so I always had a kind of an eye on that stuff. And then 2012 hit, and I was shown Boston Marathon, Sandy Hook, 9/11 that I got more into. And yeah, I guess that was my kind of foot in the door for truth. So every day, I would say every day after, I've just been looking what's going on in the world. And at the time, I just thought, everyone in this world at the top were bad people, and we just had to make the most of a bad world. And then we had COVID hit 2020, and prior to that, when the president come in, Donald Trump, I found my knowing, and everything changed for me after that. I had a period of my life where I had a breakdown. I went to a school reunion / wedding in Greece, and I couldn't tell you why, but I just started crying. I was having panic attacks, and I let a lot of my business get on top of me. I had the party lifestyle as well, and I didn't really associate that I wasn't looking after myself. I just blamed my work for being stressed. So there was one turning point. And then the second one, I got myself arrested 3 times in the space of about 18 months, all just being drunk and very cheeky, wrong place, wrong time. But the last one was in a cell in Tenerife on a stag do. And I really didn't want to go to this stag do anyway, because I was drinking less and not partying as much. And I literally woke up and turned around and I was in the cell, and it was like a movie, and I didn't know how I got in there. But I was in there for 40 hours, and I got a voice in my head that said, what are you doing with your life right now? You've got no control of it. So that was about 4.5 years ago. I stopped drinking after that, and this journey just unfolded. So I went on a self-development, business development, and then it just went into the spiritual world, and haven't looked back since.
Pretty amazing how that happens, isn't it?
And it's all meant to be.
Well, you know, as you're telling the story, I'm just nodding a lot because, yeah, I've been there. And I describe it like God hitting me around the face with a big wet fish until I finally paid attention, which is it's a very common story. You have to crash before you get it.
Definitely, they say you have to go through that darkness to get to the light, and we're about to see a lot more people about to step into that chaos, should I say.
Well, I just got the truth bumps as you said that, and this is one of the things I've enjoyed about watching your videos recently. Why don't you tell everybody, my viewers, what where you think we're at and what's coming up? Let's start there before we unpick it.
Yeah, return to source. Okay. We're now seeing, so everything over the last few years has been an awakening process for us, and the awakening is us becoming aware of not just ourselves, everything that's going on in the world, and we've been presented with the society and the system that we've all been born into, and this is run through generations. So we've yet to experience the true meaning of freedom, and we are literally at the finish line now. And my whole job throughout this has been trying to share information, because everything that we're being showed is really negative, because the system has been. But everything that we're being shown, if you flip it, there's always a truth element to that. So it's almost like we're all being tested and taken down this big, long journey. And we're at the final stages now, the two worst things. And one of them is human trafficking, paedophilia, which we're now just starting to see come out with Elon Musk taking over Twitter. And then the next thing is going to be a war. And it's going to be those two things that are really going to have to, because we've gone through all the other things of corruption and all the different stuff with the big C, and that didn't really work. Like, we as loved ones have tried to help other people, that didn't work. So now it's like, right, people have to go through and see what the real problem is. And it's almost like we've been taken along this path. And when it comes to children, and when it comes to the war being destroyed by evil people, that's when you're going to start seeing more and more of the world uniting. So we're at a crucial stage now, because now the mainstream are hearing about grooming gangs in the UK, we're hearing about the human trafficking all over the world, Hunter Biden's laptop. So we're at that part in mainstream. And there will be some sort of scare event just about to come. However, I keep telling people that's not for us. That's for us to go, let's wake up to it. So if we flip it, right now we've got the World Cup on. And I'm wearing this today because my friend's a coach for the USA soccer team, and they're losing right now against Holland. So I was representing. But this World Cup's really significant, because it's never been in November before, ever. It's never been in the Middle East before. And there was always, again, the negative side, it's corruption, that it shouldn't be there, it's all money. But on the flip side, there's a reason for it being out here. So it's a neutral country, effectively. The Middle East has suffered wars, I don't know for how many years now. It's just, you can imagine from an energetic standpoint, it's just been horrendous. So you've got the most televised event.
Is that you beeping? Is that you beeping or me? I don't think it's me.
It must be not me.
Okay, well, I'll just shut everything down. Sorry to interrupt you. It was just a beep, beep.
That's all right. Is that gone?
Okay. I think it's gone, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably me. Carry on. Sorry.
It's the mum's house. So in the world, yes, so the World Cup's the most televised event in the world, and it's never been in November before. And this is really significant. A lot of people say, oh, it's just because it's their winter and it's cooler. No. What has happened is that we've got the world are going to be uniting here. So the last World Cup had 4 billion unique viewers. That's half the world's population. With what's gone on and what's about to finish, the world are going to have to unite. That's why it's called the Great Awakening. And we're starting to see in every sort of country now, there is some sort of uprising, there's a revolution, there's election fraud pretty much plastered around the whole world. So in our own lands, we've got our own battles. But as soon as we start seeing, oh my God, it's everywhere, we now have a hub where everyone can harness that energy. And also, if you're going to try and wake up the world, you do it in one hit. And if everyone's going to be watching the TV around that World Cup final, and especially you can start seeing things are starting to spice up now, it's going to allow people to start coming to terms with what has been going on. And I foresee mass arrests all over the world. I see governments going to be arrested all over the world, and it's going to be in such quick succession that you're not going to be able to have the people going, no, that's wrong, that's wrong. It's just going to go boom, boom, boom. But what's going on? Oh, the Brazilian government's just been arrested for election fraud. Oh, Arizona, election fraud. Australia, Dan Andrews, election fraud. And it's just going to be so quickly that let's now focus on the World Cup, because we're all going to be watching that World Cup final anyway, a football fan or not. And I really see that we're going to be given a lot more truths at that point. So the next few weeks is going to be really spicy. And on Twitter yesterday, Elon just released like a whole series of information which is worth seeing. And you're seeing that all that leads to is how the government were involved with censorship and blocking certain accounts because of the election. So all these things where nothing gets done and they're all corrupt, it's been that way for a reason. It all has to go in one big swoop. So it kind of like damage limitation, but also it's a celebration and unity at the same time.
Well, I'm just going to point out a few things to people watching this who don't necessarily watch football. It is extremely strange, despite COVID, that the World Cup is being played in November, because all the best players are being taken out of their mum. Right, it's my mum. Yeah, off you go. All the world's best players have been taken out of their league clubs to do this and to go to this place, Qatar, which does not really benefit from tourism or football. And so the timing of it is really interesting. But as you were speaking, I was just have you seen the film? I think it's the film Moonfall. Have you seen that film?
No.
A lot of people on my channel have seen it because I mentioned it a few times. But Moonfall was really interesting because it was about the world coming to an end, but there was a big AI inside the moon, and then there's a lot of disclosure in this film. But what was one thing that really struck me about this film, and if I'm wrong about this, please correct me in the comments, but there was a scene in it where all these Americans were watching the World Cup on TV. And I remember thinking, this was only like a year ago or less that this film was out. And I remember thinking that's a very strange choice of thing for them to be watching in a movie, because it was soccer, because soccer still isn't massive in the States, is it? I mean, they played very well against England the other day, but England were a bit flat, to be fair. But I think the whole thing's fixed anyway. But I might be wrong. But I don't know. I watched you talk about this on your channel. I thought that's very interesting, and it resonates with me as well, because it's the perfect tool. And when is the final? Do you know the date?
The 18th of December. So it's a date that I've been telling people the whole time. Just pay attention to that date. It's the official holy day as well, if you look at the history of that day. And the one thing I didn't mention, and so that all could be coincidence. However, Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief, and this is where people, if we just zoom out a tiny bit more, the next World Cup, which no one has been talking about, and you have to go and search specifically for the video on YouTube, is actually in America, labeled as North America. So again, takes it off USA. But Donald Trump orchestrated that from the start to the finish. And there's a dinner that he has with FIFA at the World Economic Forum, right on their turf. And the FIFA president says, firstly, this was all orchestrated by Trump. He also got Mexico and Canada involved with the World Cup, and on the same day signed a trade agreement between the neighbouring countries, 0% trade, never happened before. And he also organised the next Olympic Games in 2028, which is going to be in LA too. So the fact that Donald Trump's involved with FIFA, and it wasn't really publicised at all, and this one's in November, and we got all the stuff in America. Like we already know there's no such thing as coincidences, and there's so many things that just link up to this. So I've stuck with this the whole time, and it feels like now that the masses are now starting to see the truth about some of the horrendous stuff. But just remember, it's almost like you got your foot in the dark bit, but we can go straight into the light. So it's only going to be for a few weeks.
So what exactly do you think is going to happen on the 18th?
Okay. So I know that there's going to be a lot of people coming back, and there's a lot of people that we've loved over the years and we've idolized, and there's a lot of names that all of a sudden there was a suicide, etc. We're going to see from all generations people coming back in, because the biggest question for people is, how are we going to deal with all this evil and all these people that we love? How are we going to deal with that? Well, if you just bring back everyone first of all, with everything to come down, then you're going to be able to accept it, and it won't be just our generation. It's going to be everyone's generation. It's a great awakening for everyone. So all this crap that we've gone through is all going to be worth it, because it is going to be, oh my God. And when you bring them back, then everyone's going to pay attention to be able to then present to you, look, this is why it has happened. And this war's been our whole lifetime, and our parents and their grandparents. It's a spiritual war. And it's literally, why is it taking so long? Because we've had to unite the whole world, first of all, to bring out all this evil and bring out the awareness to us. So the films that you mentioned, they've been showing us in plain sight, not to rub it in our faces. There's good directors that are putting it out there. So we get to know about Blood Diamond, and we get to know about, they put things in our subconscious, and they show you how the FBI and the intelligence work. We wouldn't know that unless we had the film. So there's good and bad everywhere. If we trust in humanity, there's a lot more good people. It's all been done like this because we are the majority, and we've had to wake up to it and not be told and not wait for a savior or anything. We've all had to come to that conclusion ourselves.
Absolutely. So when you say they're coming back, describe what you mean.
Okay, I'm going to say Diana, for example. That would be the big one. Diana wasn't killed on that day. It was intercepted. They went to kill her. If you go and look at the official story, her car, the number plate was, none of it made sense. I remember I was in Spain with my parents, and they said that she died because of the paparazzi chased her. And they arrested 12 paparazzis, kept him inside for 4 days, and not one of them had a photo of the car that they were apparently chasing. Then you're going to hear names like Maddie McCann, JFK Jr., and then potentially we've got people like Michael Jackson, David Bowie. And I'm not just saying this on here. I can show you videos of all of them actually on TV the day after they died, pretending they're someone else, and you're like, that's them. And that sounds crazy, but when you put it all together and you go back and take the time to look at the official story, the quantum computer and the way this military work, they've intercepted things right on cue. So hit jobs would go out, and these evil people have been given this kind of playground, and they think that they've got the power to do these things, and then they think they're protected and get away with it. But that's all been done deliberately, draining the swamp completely to where we get to the precipice, and then it turns on its head. And so Tupac is another name. He's in Cuba at the moment. I can show you loads of different links on this as well. So that's where I think the Great Awakening is going to be so much of that everyone is going to just have to forget everything that's gone on, because now all of a sudden it's like, what's this new world going to be like?
So you're talking about famous people. When you said it initially, it made it sound like there's going to be generations of our own families coming back. Is that happening?
Not that I know of. I think that would be quite hard on the family members to say. They tend to be dead for a few years. But a lot of these people in the limelight, what I think's happened, you've heard that people, when they speak out, doctors and scientists, for example, they might have said something and then they're found out dead later on. I don't think a lot of these people were killed. I think the hit job was sent out. I think it was intercepted. And there's a document series on Netflix called Fear City, and I'd encourage everyone to go and watch that. It's a 3-part series, true story of how they took down the mafia in the 80s in New York. and they showed you what it was needed to take down the whole organization using a RICO Act. And what it also showed you is to get a warrant to...
Just telling the viewers, that's RICO.
Yes.
RICO. I'm just telling
RICO.
them, because you guys watching this can go and research RICO, and you can go and research, what Harry's saying about a lot of these famous people. A lot of conspiracy theorists have been saying this for a number of years. I was in the States recently, and everybody went to see Bob on the tour, and everybody went to see Bob Joyce to see if he was Elvis, for example. I think he probably is. I decided to sleep in that morning because I don't really mind. But I think you're on the right lines. There's no question that something spectacular is going to happen. But what I want to ask you is, in the Revelations and stuff, the talk is of the human race having to be brought to its knees with a scare event. Now, you mentioned war as well, and I've been saying I had a vision of a nuclear war a couple of years ago, but not a real one, but one that had to take us to our knees, so that so the whole race would reach up their arms for God in that moment, and then that would be delivered, and that would be the big moment. That's the big Great Awakening. Do you agree with that? And how does that tie in with this, like Princess Diana coming out and giving somebody the World Cup?
Yeah, so I see that it might challenge people, but the texts and the scriptures and stuff, I think a lot of those are metaphors. And the word, I'm so big on words. So the word Christian, if you change the last letter from an N to an M, it's Christ I am. So we are the Christ, and we are the ones that are going to wake up to this awakening. And when Jesus rose from the dead, we rose from our sleep. So this scare event that I mentioned, we've been told about a scare event, and it's the only way you're going to wake people up. But we've been born in the Western world, quite privileged, really. And yet in the Middle East, people are waking up and there's bombs going off all the time. We've never had anything like that, and we're complaining about certain things. I think, I'm going to say I believe, I'm very close to knowing that the Biden administration, they're so corrupt. They don't have the military on this side. The world is seeing what a numpty is. And now you're seeing in the media, North Korea, Iran, Russia, all these names. I think they're going to turn on America because of Biden and stuff. And all of a sudden we're going to go, we're not with Biden. No, he's not with us. And then who are you going to call for? Donald Trump. And then the military comes. So it's like we have to ask for the military to come in. The military have been waiting for us. And again, this is a world where we have to save ourselves. And if we relied on the military to step in straight away, none of us would have cared what was going on. And there's in 2020, and this shows you how the world doesn't care about smaller countries. There was a military coup, as the media labeled it, and they went into Myanmar and they took over, and there was election fraud. And if you looked at the president of Myanmar, she was related, or not related, she was very linked with Hillary Clinton and all the same suspects. She's now in prison now for 26 years, live. So when people say nothing's happening, when something did happen, the media, first of all, as they normally did, labeled it as a military coup. Then all the journalists and everyone else are going, this is outrageous, how dare they? So imagine if the military come in and you had the media saying, this is unfair, Trump's calling this, and we would be out, there'd be so much division. So it's almost like we've had to be taken through this. We've got the military about to step in Brazil. We're going to start seeing it all over the world, but I think we're going to have to call it. So I think with all these evil people doing their stuff, they're going to do something, and all of a sudden they're going to turn now back on America, and we're already all straight away we'll snap out of it. We don't want Biden. Like, look at him, he's been lying to us. All of a sudden, the people that have been trying to defend it will have to snap out to it, and that's when that problem, reaction, solution, all of a sudden we can flip it. The problem is them. The reaction is us. We need to actually now do something. And the solution is the military and the truth.
Yeah, so problem, reaction, solution is a term that David Icke first coined. And it's based on the Hegelian dialect, which is actually really old. And what I think is that the military and Trump have been in control of all of this. The White Hats are in control of everything. But as Harry says, which I totally agree with, the only way of getting the mass consciousness to flip because my God, how much more do they need to see? You know, to flip and to realize that this is a spiritual war, and to get that connection to God back, and to then move into the golden age. I mean, Trump said the golden age last week in a rally. This term is now in the consciousness. It's not just some made up thing. Problem, reaction, solution is the only way of doing it, because that's exactly what's been used against us for so long, and got people to believe that 9/11 was real, and that Sandy Hook was real, and all of these other things, these awful things that are all basically used to manipulate the consciousness of the people so that they could advance an agenda. So we're just, it's like a mirror version of that, but in a really good way, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And what I found out as well is even the events like 9/11 and all the other things where you're like, when you're paying attention, it is glaringly obvious. So what I've seen is that, again, these were all planned. They had their own evil plan, which the good guys or the white hats have been following the whole time. So, for example, when 9/11 hit, which was horrendous, they only intended to fake the aeroplanes. On that day, everyone was called not to come in. It was almost like they were going to do it anyway. So the white hats, they intercepted every sort of one, but they left the most obvious clues, knowing that the human conscious and the free thinkers would wake up. So every terrible event we've seen, I think it has been infiltrated by the good guys too. So they let them do it all, and these evil people, but then they have to now explain themselves, because how's that building fallen down? And then you realize all these crisis actors, why would they be so evil? And why would that, for me, maybe they're the crisis actors for the good guys, again, make it obvious. So we've been playing their game the whole time, and you'll start seeing, if they were that clever, they wouldn't be making that many mistakes. But they're not clever, and we've made the mistakes, and we put the things in plain sight on the movies, again, for us in our subconscious, because when certain things happen, oh, I saw that in the movie, we come to that awakening ourselves. It's almost been like this spiritual war is like a Truman Show, and it is kind of all being monitored the whole time. However, it's still down to free will. In the last few years, we've seen that is people have chosen to take the wrong path through money, through greed, and they've been given so many chances, and the people are coming in with notices, they're showing them documentation, and people have woken up to that. And then you see all the stuff that they're doing at the schools, the transgender movement. Like, these are things that if you sat down with a person one-on-one, you say, do you think it's right that that man is competing in a women's sport? Their soul would tell me, no, that's not right. But if you asked in the group, they wouldn't speak up because they're worried that they might get demonized. And I think this is what it's got to, is we've been shown all the craziness, and like you said, some people still haven't seen it. It's like, how? So it's going to have to take this last bit. And the two worst things in this, and this is why I think I've been censored. I've gone straight to the end game. I'm really big on the human trafficking and calling out a lot of stuff, and war. Arms is number one for moneymaker, and human trafficking is number two. So it's almost like what, human trafficking number one?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is the biggest industry on the planet. It's huge, you know. A murder is the second, you know.
And they tie in hand with each other as well. And the thing is, it's so evil and it's so dark that most of us good people in there, we don't even have the imagination to take ourselves there. We couldn't, and that's why it's been so hard to accept. So I've been talking about all that stuff the whole time. And it's almost like all the other confusions and climate change and spraying the sky, ignore that. Let's focus on the real thing now. So, but you had to go through all that to get us to this point.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to what's been going on with the children, that's driving force behind everything that I've done. And it's just, you know, I've been aware of it for quite a long time, and for some reason I can cope with it. But when I've spoken to people about it, they just go, because they can't. Firstly, it's so horrible, they don't want to hear it. But secondly, if they do hear it, they just can't believe that another human being would do that to another human being. So then I say, well, that's because they're not human. And that once you get to that point, then it becomes easy to deal with. Although I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on how some people can deal with that information and some people just can't. And do you think that the whole world does have to know about all of that because although it is coming out very mainstream right now, which is for me a fabulous thing to see, but I think even today I posted a video on Telegram which was about the CEO of I can't remember how to pronounce the name of that company, the fashion company that's doing all this satanic shit. How do you say it?
Balenciaga.
Balenciaga, which basically means worship the devil. And the video, even on my Telegram channel, which is full of enlightened people and awake people, somebody said there should be a warning on this, and before you watch it. And actually, there was a warning on it because the guy narrating the video said, "Beware, there's going to be some images that are going to freak you out." But the images that were shown were not actual children being, things happening to children. It was art being sold by Christie's of children with penises for noses and genitals on their faces, and this stuff was being this auction house was owned by the same guy that owns that company. But the thing is, I've had this discussion for 10 years now with people who have been going through their own spiritual awakening, and they've said to me, "Mark, you've got to stop talking about the children and the satanic ritual abuse, and we don't need to know about that because it's an inside job." And I'm like, well, it might be an inside job, and it is an inside job, but we need to know what we're up against. So how have you found all of that in your journey, Harry?
Yeah, so I like the symbol, the yin and yang. And if you look at the whole symbol as love, and in love, you have every emotion in the human experience. So within that, there is anger and darkness and fear and all this. So we always have a choice. And I find the spiritual journey I've been on, I met a lot of people that only choose to be in the light. However, they're blinded by the light because you don't know what's over your shoulder. And when you hear you're going into denial, we're going to this great awakening, and we have to know that because it's not about us. It's about our kids and our future kids. And you need to tell, if you don't know, how are you going to prepare them for the world? So exactly. my fear, and with all this now, people say, I don't want to hear it. But if I tell you that all the hard work and all the rest and all the big things have already been done, and if you go back and look at all the executive orders, all the rescue missions, yeah, there's things going on now, but the elite gangs and the MS-30, they've all been taken out. So if I can tell you that all the good's already happened, and then all you can say then, right, in that yin and yang, I've got my back against the wall on the darkness, and it can't get any darker than what we've just been seeing. It can't. So that's the spectrum of the human experience. Now we've experienced it. We're hearing stories. We've actually got to live that, because the human experience is about experiencing every aspect of it. So now we can be back against the wall, and all we've got ahead of us is light. So for me, I'd encourage people, you don't have to go in there and look at the graphic details, but you definitely need to know what's going on, or you're not going to be able to get around it. And it is almost going to be, right, here's what's happened, and it's all laid out for you now. Now you can go into that information if you want to. So I think it's important, because the reason when we say, oh, don't talk about that stuff, there's a lot of people that have gone through it and they haven't had anyone to talk to about. They've been kind of shun out of society. And if we don't talk about it, how do they heal? So for me, it's allowing people to talk about it so we can learn from their experiences without having to go into it ourselves. But at least we then see in all aspects of darkness, and again, seeing what people have done to come into light. Because when you go to the very worst in society, prison, army, suicides, paedophilia, again, it can't get worse than that. So all the things that we're complaining about in life, like a headache or the next pub that we're going to, and we're moaning. Yeah, the weather, that's a big one. But we've got no reason to complain after. And that's where a lot of my teachings have come from. I've worked with people that have been told they're going to die. And then when you work with people that have been told they're going to die, you can take that as a truth. And that's a myth, by the way. No one can tell you how long you got to live. Then you get the opposite. You just get truth. They tell you what they want to start doing now. They tell you not what's not serving them. Now, I don't want to see that person. All they get is truth. And that's where the soul coach comes from. I got a big mirror up every time I heard the most meaningful things. And I reflected it back on me. It was like, wow, like there's certain things that I'm spending so much time chasing, and they're just saying, be happy. Spend time with your loved ones, keep growing, enjoy every moment. And it's like, simplify it down to a choice or a word, and that becomes your life blueprint.
Yeah, I mean, this is why spiritual awakening tends to mean going through some sort of dark night of the soul. And I've been preaching for years that you should live your life as if there's a bullet pointed into your head, which has led me to great excesses as a human being. But it's also led me to the point where I think I have some wisdom because I've been through so much. And collectively, it is going to be a dark night of the soul first, right? For the humans, for the ones that have still got to wake up. And I think people watching this are going to be interested in your view. And the 18th of December is it is feeling like something very close to Christmas is going to happen. And the synchronicity of the World Cup, it really resonated with me when you talked about that. Oh, the other thing I was going to say that's really interesting about this World Cup is that I've noticed lots of people, including my children, my daughters, talking about, I've got to see this match. I've got to see this match. I'm like, since when have you been interested in football? Right? So something's going on in social media that the kids are, and they're getting excited about the World Cup in a way that I've never seen before, because it was always football fans, but now it's way beyond football fans. And I don't think that's an accident. I think that's part of God's plan.
Mm-hmm. And Elon tweeted the other day that there's 40,000 tweets per minute on Twitter at the moment for the World Cup alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all eyes on, and I've been sharing this for a while now, saying this goes beyond football, and also what's been interesting is that the media have kicked off and they're not welcoming the LGBTQ community, and they're not allowing us to drink alcohol. But again, we're looking at it from one perspective, from the West. Like, the whole world consists of other people that have their own beliefs. So we've also been given quite a harsh lesson, because I think the English players were like, right, we're going to wear it. No, they didn't. They had no chance. They got scared about doing it. So it also showed you, hang on, there's another way here. And then we meet in the middle. Or we just meet on truth.
I mean, the way that football, especially them all going on their knees before the matches, just has made it. Actually, I stopped watching. I mean, I love football, but I just couldn't watch it anymore. What a bunch of pricks. But then people like Matt Letizia pop up, right? And Matt Letizia has been amazing in the last 18 months. And this is, and other people, Ronaldo recently with his thing with United, I don't think that's an accident either, because I was postulating on this with somebody the other day. I think I was watching Robbie Williams being interviewed by Sean Attwood, and Sean asked him a question about whether he ever felt like buying a football club, because Ryan Reynolds bought Wrexham, for example, and then you look at some of the owners of the football clubs, like the King of Thailand buying Manchester City and the Glazers buying Manchester United, and then it hit me. I was like, this is all to do with child trafficking, all of it. And the guy I was talking to, he was like, yeah, there's been a lot of talk about paedophilia in football, and I was like, yeah, I experienced it when I was a kid. And, and then I started talking about a lot of cases that have been brushed under the carpet. Brian Clough, Alex Ferguson, lots of Kevin Keegan, lots of extreme dodginess that's managed to not break through the surface. And so I think this connection with football is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you've got it spot on there as well. I watched presentation by the Trump administration the other day where they said the Super Bowl was the most viewed event in America.
And it's
however, it's the biggest event. Yeah, and biggest event for child trafficking. So yeah, there's loads on that. And you mentioned Matt Letizia, who is a hero in this. I know that there was the Southampton scandal of the way that the staff were getting involved with the kids, and that all come out recently as well. So I think that's the important thing, is that all this information will come out, and it's going to go, oh my God, this world's so sick. And no, it's already been dealt with. It just has to come out still. And I think that's the most important. If you know we've already won and you know that we're in control, as soon as you get that emotion, snap out of it again and just observe it rather than getting caught in it, because this has been going on our whole lifetime. And people just didn't know about it. All of us have woken up. Well, the truth came out in 2020. And the reason why we kept hearing 2020 vision, these names were on purpose. I remember all the big documentaries all come out. Then censorship was really big. And that was the year where the world, and in that short space of time, you've been doing this for a long time. How much has it changed in terms of the public awareness of all? Well, you couldn't have these conversations before, or it's still difficult to have them now.
Well,
We couldn't have these in the open before.
I tried to have them on Facebook and in person with people, and you know, I just got defriended and I got threatened and I got, you know, all sorts of shit. But I do remember, because I used to be a business coach, and I had a boys' weekend with some other business guys in Bath one weekend. I think it was in 2016, and I stayed up until 4 a.m. telling the guys what was going on, and they were just taking the piss out of me. They just thought it was hilarious. I was hilarious, so they just kept, and I was just spewing information out about Trump, about SRA, about the New World Order, and all of this stuff, and they just thought it was hilarious, right? And then they defriended me. All of them defriended me, and then one of them came back in 2020 or 21 because he'd been working with some other guys who'd come to him to write a book called The Red Pill Revolution, and he had to hear the same information I was saying from 3 other people, and then he got in touch and said, "Oh, I think maybe you were right." And I was like, and that's what it's been like the last 2 years. It's just been lots of people. I went to see a friend in Manchester recently, and she said to me, "Mark, everything you said is coming true." And I was like, now you're getting it. And it's not, you know, it's not about being right. It's just about, for my job, it's just been to hold space for people while we've been going through it, because it's just been an extremely isolating experience for lots of people. And, you know, you've become a soul coach. You know, it's great to meet a fellow apocalyptimist, because it is a good outcome. And I think the reason why I wanted to get you on is because, firstly, your optimism and your research is fantastic and your presentation is fantastic. But I think people are I know people are very, very interested in what's it going to look like, you know, because we can't help it. We're too inquisitive. We want to know, you know, this is why Tarot by Janine is so brilliant, because everybody wants to know what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks in my country and how's it going to play out. So it's good to meet somebody that has the positive viewpoint on the outcome. But have you got any more insights into the specifics of it from an experience? If somebody's watching this that is half awake and thinks I talk a load of crap, but is still a little bit interested, what would you say to them that they're going to experience?
I would say the first thing is to know that the world is going to completely change from every aspect of it. We're going to realize that every part of our life has been a lie, and that can be horrible. But when you start realizing even the concept of time and money, we're going to have abundance. We're not going to be in a rush. We're not going to be getting older every year, aging. Like, all these concepts are all going to completely get changed. And then you've got to ask yourself, what causes you stress in your life? And if you really be honest, everything, work, taxes, parking tickets, all these, again, it's equated to the system. So you take that away, you're not now paying for, you're going to have fresh drinking water. They say there's going to be a food shortage. No, there's going to be supermarkets that are going to crash because they're part of the system and they give us poison and crap food. But we can then go back to our farmers and back to the greengrocers and local communities that done their grows. And so every consumption of food, you know, it's the soul food. It's going to make you better. So you don't even have to stress about that part. You've got technology that's going to be presented to us as well. So it is going to get us back to a peak condition. Now it's our job to turn up. So we're not going to have laziness and you're going to want to be your best. So we're going to have all the resources to do that, which then has to come back to ourselves to learn who we are and do the work. Because when you're going into a world of abundance, no one wants to be around negative people at all. Like that's hard enough anyway in a negative world. But you'll pick up on energy so much. You'll feel when people are not in a vibrating at a good state. And then beyond that, I like animals, and the world that we are is fear. We're all in fear. So certain animals, we don't even ever get near because they attack us. And if we're born into a world of love, and then the animals are all in the same household, all different animals, look how they all grow up together. Or you see the amazing videos in Africa where they grow up the lions and then they come back years later and the lions are still loving them. That's the world completely. So we'll have our pet wolves. We'll be able to mix with these animals because we become the providers for them. We're not there going killing them all, and that's all in the consciousness. We're going to be able to shift. So when people say what the new world's going to be like, start working on your creativity, imagination, and go into meditations, and you go and create it, because we can do anything with what's about to come.
Absolutely, I love that, and I totally agree. I found, as you were talking, I think one of the interesting things about this is that because we've been brought up in this 3D high density bullshit world, nobody can actually imagine what it's like to live in love and abundance because they've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I've always been there and created my own reality, and I try to share that ability with other people because it's like being in a bubble. You're walking through this noise and you're going through a bubble. But you know, I've been saying so many things, so many incredible things have happened in the last few years that are impossible to deny or avoid. Like, you know, just the traveling that I've been doing in the last few months in countries that are supposed to have all these regulations. I just walked in and I walked out, you know, because it's a frequency game, and they're trying to keep pulling us back down to this thing, but we have the power to just let go of it. It's only because we give it attention. I mean, I've said many times, we all know that they control and own the money system. So why does anybody pay taxes? I mean, you mentioned tax. It doesn't make, and everyone people look at me and go, what? I'm like, well, think about it. Why do they need to raise money off of you if they own and control the money supply? It's like so simple when you look at it like that, because and then people go, oh, fuck, I never thought of it like that. And it, you know, parking fines. I stopped paying parking fines 10 years ago. We made it a sport. You know, we'd park wherever we wanted, and then we'd come back and the tickets would be on the car, and my kids would just peel them off and stick them on the fence. And old women would walk past tutting at us. And I'd go, you know, who's telling, some private companies telling me I can't park here and they're going to charge me? Don't be silly. And then people are like, really? Because it's just stepping through the fear. That's the thing a lot of people are struggling with is that stepping through the fear. There's a lot of people still paying their TV license, still paying their gas, electricity, still paying their taxes because they're afraid of the consequences. But there are no consequences because you're internal spirit.
Yeah, and that's again, this is why it's important. They're not going to tell you, and where do we get our information from? Them. So they're not going to tell us. So we have to do it all. So common law and knowing your rights is a big. I come back from Brazil last year, and my video went viral because I turned down the 10-day quarantine and the $2.5 grand, and I recorded the whole thing. So the police come, and in the end, I schooled them a bit, and I said, look, under the section, the Criminal Justice Act of 2015, Section 26, subsection 3, I said, a constable that's acted in his and her powers and privileges knowingly, I said, that's a 14-year prison sentence for you. And they took it in turn. They still arrested me unlawfully, but they took it in turns on camera. Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? And they had to let me out. So that's the worst case, is the police. And if you haven't done anything wrong, the worst case is 24 hours in a cell, but you can charge for every hour that you're in there. So that was my knowing then. So when it comes to things like parking tickets, and if you think about it, it's the common road, it's the common ground. And if you actually are paying your taxes, go and have a look what that's included. It's the roads. So it's like a repayment we're repaying again. And you said the consequences. The consequence is the words that we speak. So when someone knocks at your house like a bailiff, as long as you don't need to engage with them, you just ask them questions, they can't answer it. So I've documented a lot of this stuff. And I stayed with my mum and dad a bit longer than I anticipated last year. I was there for a year. And obviously all the parking tickets are coming to their house. So they were the most good people ever. And they didn't, my mum now knows how to deal with bailiffs. And my mum knows, like, don't even open the letters, just send them straight back again. And
send them back. Especially if it's got a window, that's an internal memo. Just say addressee not recognized, return to sender, because it's not you. It's if it's in capital letters. The bailiffs was one of my favorites. I've told this story on the channel before, but I'll tell you and anybody that's not heard it. There's a fantastic sentence I learned. I revoke your implied right of access to this property. Please leave. I did that with a bailiff for the TV license in 2013, 14. He just turned and left. And like you, and then I went up to him and I quoted the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2006, subsection 16. Anybody knowingly giving money to a corporation or an organization that supports terrorism would be breaking the law and would be an act of treason. And I said the BBC reported on Building 7 collapsed in 20 minutes before it actually collapsed. Therefore, I would be supporting an organization supporting terrorism, and I'd be breaking the law. And the guy just looked at me and went,
yeah, jaw drop.
I'm not getting any money out of you, am I? I went, no. And he drove off. But it's that standing in your power, Harry, that is the key. And I think that's what's been wonderful about the last couple of years. We've had the time to look inside and find this power. And I'm seeing it more and more and more. And how about you? Because you tell us a bit about you call yourself the soul coach. So I assume you help people. Have you got somewhere for people to go, or where can they find you?
I've got a members community called the Soul Truth Community, and we do daily meditations, we do a weekly coaching call, and then you do a Harry Truth call on a Thursday where I break down loads of films and put it all together. And as I said, I was from the fitness industry, and I was one of the best in the UK for transformations. I had quite a good portfolio of changes. But what I've experienced in the last November, we got going with this membership, the changes that people experience in their own lives within just a few weeks, it trumps any other thing that I've done before, because the soul is instant. The moment you get that knowing, you can't then turn away from it. And then what you said, standing on your truth, that is I think the biggest teaching that a lot of us need to start work on is, you know what's right, you feel what's right, but then you have to deal with everyone else, because a truth always gets met with resistance. But if it's a truth, you don't need to change. So we just need to work on standing on that truth for you. And it's amazing. I'm seeing women that wouldn't even turn their camera on to start with. They wouldn't talk for weeks. And now they do the shares, but it's not. So it's not me teaching, it's everyone becomes the coach for each other. And because you come in it with this, that will to grow and learn, you're just watching people going, oh my God. So you see the transformations. And the other thing that I've really learned is when people are more awakened, you listen. So you can see the conversations that you have with people, that it flows. That's the way that life should be. But when you're in your ego, if you don't like something, you put all these blockages in, you're negative. It's an awkward conversation. So what I've really noticed is the people connecting around the world, foundation, we want truth, love, peace, happiness, joy. That's what we all want from feelings. So if we can all start there, okay, now I can accept you for who you are. I might not want to go around your house and I might not want to spend all my time with you, but I can accept you for you. We've lived in a world where we go on a date, for example, and all you do is meet their ego and you introduce your ego. And then a few weeks later, you meet the real person. You're like, oh my God, they're a stress head, they're a mess, because we're not being truthful to ourselves. And it's this need to impress. And the only one that you need to impress is you, is just be yourself. So I've seen a huge shift over the last few years. And I think that knowing that good's happening, and that's what you can't really argue with me then. I'm like, look what you're doing. You're arguing with me and I'm telling you good's here. I'm not just telling you, I'm saying, just go watch that. If you watch that, you'll see why I've come to this. No. Okay, so now you're choosing to. I can protect my energy. I don't want to talk to you now. And that's the beauty of this, is you choose who you share your energy with. And if people are not willing to accept it at the moment, just know that they will. And the people that we've lost in our life, they will come back. You're not there to make them come back. They're going to watch your action, go, I want some of that too. And when the darkness does come, your light's still shining. They're the first person you're going to turn to. So for me, it's letting go of all the hardships that we've had, because you can give yourself a pat on the back knowing that what's about to come. So it's almost like play the timeline, get creative and imagine and work on yourself, and they will come along too. And in the meantime, you'll meet other people along this journey which you would have never met in another lifetime.
That's been the best thing about it. But my mum's just got the hairdryer going, so I'm going to have to call this quits. Send me the links to your Rumble and website. I'll put them below this, and I'll post it on the channel. And it'd be great to schedule a chat with you on the 18th.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, thank you so much for today as well.
Maybe we should do a live show. Harry, maybe we should do a live show watching the World Cup final on Rumble.
I'm up for that.
Yeah, idea. I think I'm still.
I'll show you what I've got. I've got my Trump 1 sign here, but I will have my Diana welcome back sign ready.
That would be amazing. So yeah, let's. It's been wonderful to meet you. Thanks for spending an hour with me, and you guys watching this. Click on Harry's links. Go and check out his videos, especially. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Definitely. Thank you so much, mate, and thank you everyone.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.
Cheers.